5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
How do we talk about contentious issues, important issues in a divisive culture? Is it possible? It is possible, but how do you have civil dialogue, constructive argument around things that people disagree or disagree strongly with? That's what we're going to be talking about today on Ignition. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, and we want to set your faith ablaze so that you might live the adventure that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Before we get into today's topic, we want you to know that we love listener feedback. So if you've got questions about ideas for questions for this episode, or if you have ideas for future episodes, please contact us. The easiest way to do so is by email, and the address is ignition@sfcatholic.org. I'm joined in studio once more by Renae Kranz. Hey, Renae.
Hey, Chris.
Renae, by the way, we are coming up to, Bill, what episode is this? Oh,
501.
We just celebrated the big one. There are a lot of people in studio last week.
Yes. Oh,
Not
yes,
just
last
you.
week.
Last week, when, that episode 500 aired.
When it
so
dropped,
we're now on the next 500th episode.
Ooh, it's the beginning of the next 500.
The beginning of the next 500.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And I'm here to see it kick off.
You're here to participate. And what a way to kick off the next 500.
Really.
So back in episode 496, we talked about the Catholic take on basically all things LGBTQ. And a half-hour Catholic take. I mean, there's a lot more we could have said,
right?
But we touched on some key points that I thought was important to discuss. And we got some feedback, some comments. You smile
because they come to me.
They do come to you, and you shared them with me. 2 comments in particular. Maybe you got others that you didn't share with me.
No, those were the only 2.
So we had 2 comments that I thought would be worth actually responding to, but then just talking about responding to comments.
Right.
One of them is more critical. One of them is kind of a, hey, here's an idea kind of thing. So they're not both equally disagreeing.
Right.
With,
and I should say that there were 1 or 2 comments that were also very positive and appreciated
you
the
didn't share
episode.
that with
I did
me.
not.
What the heck? Fine. I see how it is. So I think I want to respond to I don't like ignoring comments, especially, and for
That's
years.
why I send them to you.
Right. And I've been in online conversations, arguments in the best and worst sense of the term, going back to the mid-90s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I always think it's better to engage. Now, having said that,
if you can do so constructively.
If we can do so constructively and time permitting, right? So, I mean, we can't always take the time to actually record an episode responding to comments. But on occasion, I think it'd be a good thing to do. And in this particular case, because LGBTQ issues are so much a part of the cultural discourse today, and usually it's done so poorly. That I did think this would be a good topic for us to take the time to respond to some comments.
Yeah. I think we both knew that we were probably going to see some comments on there that weren't super friendly.
Right. And so I do want to, I want to invite anybody who's listening or watching. Again, we give the email address for a reason, right? ignition@sfcatholic.org. That doesn't just go into the dark, dark
and the
webs
YouTube
of the
comments
intertubes.
we do see them. So.
Yeah, we do. Yep. We don't always comment. We're not always able to. But okay. So
if you want to tell us how much you love us in the YouTube comments,
please feel free to do so.
You are free to do so.
Yeah. So I do think it's important to engage when people comment. When it's done, like if somebody's being just completely trolling, then I'm going to ignore.
Right.
Then I'm not. If there has to be, are you open? Are you listener, viewer who's maybe disagreeing or not? But are you open to hearing another perspective? If I feel like you are, I'm more inclined to engage.
Right.
In this particular case, as I told you, Renae, I thought about writing out a response, but I'd just rather talk about it with you.
Right. And I feel like it could help other people too at the same time who might be either feeling this way that this commenter did, or other people who see comments like that and don't really know how to respond.
And the first thing I want to say about this is it's so important. One of the downsides, maybe the downside of trying to have disagreements online is the
Anonymity.
Anonymity makes it a lot easier to be a jerk.
It does.
I've been a jerk online countless times. Hopefully less than I used to be back in the 90s, but maybe not. So if you're going to engage online, remember there's a real living, breathing person on the other end of this conversation. Even though you don't see or hear that person, there's somebody there, and treat them with the dignity and respect that you owe to them. So for us as Catholic Christians, we it's very clear. I'm called to love everyone.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean necessarily, sometimes love is speaking the truth clearly and boldly, but still not where I'm going to out-argue you, I'm going to crush you between the power of my
I'm going to win.
I'm going to win, which is totally a Chris Bergwald.
Me too.
I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I don't care. I'm taking no prisoners. No.
Wow.
That's not, so especially, and when we're in person, because we see the person, although I still...
It's a little easier to keep your emotions under control for some people, but some people might be exactly the same in person as they are online.
Yeah, some of us might be just as argumentative in person as we are, and convinced that I'm right and you're wrong, and I will win, and I will show you how, especially when it comes to capitalizing his.
Heavens.
And so anyway, that's the topic for another Catholic Views.
So you can probably guess Dr. Bergwald and I have gone around on a few things.
We have some very important things that we disagree
about.
But
we remain friends, and we trust each other enough to know that that's probably where you're going to go with some of this, I imagine.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
So, and even if in this case, I don't know, well, at least I don't think I know either of the commenters. They used synonyms.
Right.
So I don't know them personally, but I can still, even though we're not literally online or offline real world friends, I still, I would say as a human being, we should treat each other with dignity and respect. I don't think you should have to be a Christian to hold yourself to the higher standard. But as those of us who are Christian are held to the standard of love, dignity, respect. How you and what that looks like in every circumstance can vary.
Right.
But when I go into this, I need to have that frame of mind. So in this case, even though Nate Sporty Boy and Frenchman's Fury are not with us in the studio.
That's not their names?
I don't think so. But I mean, I had a classmate whose last name was French, high school classmate, his last name was French. I don't think this is Jeremy, though. So we're just going to call you Nate. I'm guessing, Nate, that might be your real first name.
Sure.
And probably Frenchman with the second one. But I want to have this conversation as if they're in the room hearing us.
Okay.
Which, because it'd be so easy for us to.
Here's your chair.
Right.
Right there.
So, and not with these two folks in particular, but if it'd be easy for you and I with some critical comment to just pile on that. But that doesn't do much of any good because it's not modeling, to your point. So not just for Nate and Frenchman, but for others who are watching, that does not model well the way that I feel we're called to respond.
Right.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Enough introductory. So Nate, with Nate's comment, there's kind of two primary things. So I'm going to read part of it, summarize part, and then read the closing line. So Nate starts off, I don't think comparing being gay to wanting to cut your arm off is going to cut it. No pun intended. Appreciated that, Nate. It shuts off discussion with LGBT people because many LGBTs don't see their being LGBT as being like wanting to cut their arm off. For them, it's not just a desire to do something the church doesn't want them to do. It's a desire to find love. So that's his first point. I think it's a really good point that I'll talk about my thoughts on it in a moment. Then Nate goes on to give an example of kind of the thing of what do you do about the example of going to a wedding of a family member who's in this case identifying as a lesbian. Do you go or not in that whole debate? And Nate ends his comment, if you think about it, tax collectors were doing some really bad things, but Jesus allowed them to dine with him anyway. And again, I think that's a valid point. I think it can be taken too far, so I want to talk about that a little bit. Yes. I want to say right at the get-go, like the whole question of when to or not to whether to go or not to go to the wedding of a loved one. There's all sorts of reasons why that can be an issue that people might struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
what's the right thing to do, that would take more time than we have. So the example, Nate, it's a great example, but I don't want to dive into the nitty-gritty because
and that's hard to answer without knowing the full
details.
Situation.
Exactly.
That's why you're supposed to approach your parish priest about
Exactly.
that.
Yep, exactly. And that's kind of, I mean, this was a homily that was given
Right.
at his parish when that came up. So
that's right. Yeah.
So FYI, Nate, I'm not going to dive, and I think you raised that as an example of your thought on how to approach it. So going back to the beginning of this, so one of the things that we mentioned in episode 496 is how not every desire that we have is a good desire. So because all of us were created by God on purpose, intentionally and out of love. So he saved us. He loves us, etc. But we're all, because of original sin, a little bit bent or broken. We're fallen, to use more biblical or churchy language. And so because of that brokenness that every one of us experience, some of our desires don't lead to my flourishing.
Right.
Don't lead to my happiness. If I indulge those desires, it would not fulfill me. And I gave the example of how, but in our culture, sometimes we say, you be you, so we sort of, hey, just do whatever you want. And my contention, the Christian contention, is that's not loving, because what you want may not lead to your happiness eternally, but even now.
Even if it involves love.
Right. So, and Nate didn't say this.
Which seems harsh.
But if I were to, if I'm on a business trip and I see an attractive woman, I'm not going to have an affair or a one-night stand.
I think I love her.
Right. No, because that would be the wrong, and that would not lead to my happiness.
Right. Even though it seems like it would make you happy at the moment.
Right. And then again, Nate, in anticipating Nate's maybe potential response, that's not necessarily love. That can just be pure lust,
right.
et cetera. So the fundamental point was we shouldn't basically, it's not loving to say, hey, you be you, indulge whatever desire you want. And I give the example that there's a condition, a psychological condition, where some people want to delimb themselves, to cut a limb off because they feel like it shouldn't be there. This is a real psychological, emotional, tension that they feel that where they want to do this. And so Nate's point is comparing being gay, or I would say transgender, to wanting to cut your arm off isn't going to cut it to many people. So rhetorically, that might be the case. I mean, I would, if I were actually talking with somebody who has same-sex attraction or suffers from gender dysphoria, so in other words, who identifies as LGBT or Q, I probably wouldn't use that example, that comparison, that analogy, actually talking with them, because it would be so easy to misconstrue it.
Right.
I was using the example to make the larger point that just because it's not loving of me to tell somebody to indulge every desire they have.
Right. And I think there's also, he's kind of connecting two things that aren't necessarily the same. The gender dysphoria and being gay are not necessarily the same thing.
Yep.
At least to me, I mean, one, yes, you could say you're looking for love, but the gender dysphoria thing is a little
my
different.
Identity, right?
Right.
Right. And that's so. Thank you for saying that, because so Nate, I in that example, I was thinking more of somebody who suffers from gender dysphoria than somebody who has same-sex attraction, because they feel this inner compulsion about their identity.
Yes.
And
the parts of their body that are.
Now, again, though, if I'm talking with somebody who has gender dysphoria, I may not use this example, because they might just, well, what do you compare them to?
It may shut down the conversation too quickly.
Yep. But I do want to address, so Nate's point, though, if you think about it, tax collectors were doing some really bad things, but Jesus allowed them to dine with him anyway. So there is this, but you're smiling. Why are you smiling?
Because I knew what I would respond to that right away, but I want... Well,
so it's true that Jesus did dine with sinners, but he called them to repentance.
That was my first thought. He wasn't like, hey, come on over here and continue in your sin.
Right.
That is not what he was doing.
Now, to be fair, so if I, yes, that I think it's true, but he didn't necessarily do it at that meal.
Right.
So it's not like he sat down next to this horrendous tax collector. Hey, you need to give that up right now, right? So timing, when and how, but we know his desire was to move them from what they were doing to what they should be doing.
Yes, and I suspect those tax collectors knew, in their heart, you're with the Son of God, with God Himself. I think you know.
They may not, but
your heart's being tugged in a place maybe aren't familiar with at the moment.
Yep.
But yeah.
For me, another great example of what we're talking about here is the woman caught in adultery.
Right.
So she's brought. Jesus does not condemn her. Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Right. So he doesn't lay into her. He doesn't rip her.
No.
He interacts with her. But then there is the call to conversion. Mm-hmm. Go and sin no more.
Yes.
So I think that there can be a tendency among us as Christians, Catholics, to sometimes distance ourselves from people who are living in a way that does not lead to their happiness, who are living sinful lives, self-destructive lives. I'm not saying that we should. So we should accompany everyone that we encounter. Right. We should be the means by which God's love and mercy and tenderness is extended to them. But God's love and mercy and tenderness, and Nate's not saying this, so I'm not necessarily responding to Nate here. God's love, mercy, and tenderness is not the same as you be you.
Right. It is not.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on Nate's?
No, I think that was good.
Okay. So if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Ignition. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwell, talking with Renae Kranz about how to have hopefully constructive civil dialogue, healthy argument in the true sense of the word, not quarrel. My kids years ago taught me, Dad, quarreling and argument are the same thing. Quarrel is when you, an argument should be a constructive dialogue, as we might otherwise.
And I will say, when you came to me about this idea, I was a little trepidatious.
Yes, you were.
I'm like, I'm certainly going to get myself in trouble here, but I'm going to do my best not to. So far, we're 17 minutes in, and I have not gotten myself in trouble yet.
We have 10 more minutes for you to blow this up, Renae. So we'll see. Come, Holy Spirit.
Everybody
don't
get
let
ready.
That happen. So Frenchman's Fury left a comment as well, and his is definitely more critical. There are some things that he agrees with us on, but some things that he disagrees on. So I might just read the whole comment through and go back, but I might find myself compelled to stop and comment.
Somewhere.
I don't agree with your opinion on what good is. So, he explains that. Love being to will the good of the other is an acceptable definition. So we talked about that. To love somebody else means to want what's best for them, to will the good of the other. Right. Love doesn't mean you always give someone what they want. They may want cocaine, but that's not good for them, so I'm fine with the way you're phrasing love. So Frenchman agrees with us on that. So what I appreciate, he acknowledges I don't agree with your opinion on what love is.
He started out good.
But he's just be kind of Frenchman here.
No, I know. He started out good because he started out with something we agree on.
Right. So I do appreciate that there's the bridge built. Mm-hmm. It kind of gets
quickly torn down.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It's good that we diverge on. Yes. You base your view of the good on what some ancient scribbles said 2,000 years ago about an invisible being you can't prove exists and its arbitrary whims accompanied with threats of eternal fire for failing to abide by said whims. I think I'll keep going for now. The foundation of your definition... Frenchman might be watching.
He might be. That would be great.
I hope he is.
He watched once.
Or
so.
He or she. The foundation of your definition for good is based on unfalsifiable superstitions and is therefore not reasonable. In contrast, what I call good is dependent on objective and observable metrics of human health and happiness. There are knowable facts about what makes human beings live productive and fulfilling lives. It doesn't require faith, believing despite sufficient evidence, and these facts do not include an invisible monster that floods worlds, slaughters innocent children, condones slavery, and has a nonsensical disgust towards many things, from homosexuals to mixed fabrics to shellfish. In short, homosexuality is neither moral nor immoral. It's simply a difference between human beings that the Catholic Church should stop obsessing over What is immoral is perpetuating this arbitrary and superstitious culture of purity, shame, and self-loathing that drives many people to suicide and many others to horrible acts of ostracization and homophobia. That's the actual effect of your imaginary beliefs. So, yeah, Frenchman, I know that you...
I think the bridge is gone.
Well, wanted to give it to us with, or did give it to us with both barrels. So a few things. Starting near the end, so at the very end, so Frenchman says that's the actual effect of your imaginary beliefs. And so if you're going to have, and maybe Frenchman just wanted to rant. I mean, if you can take the time to comment, sometimes you want to have a conversation. Sometimes you just want to rant. Now, I said at the beginning, I usually ignore it if I don't feel like there's an openness to conversation. So I do feel like there's an openness to conversation.
Because it seemed like it at the beginning.
It does seem like at the beginning. So it's sometimes you get into it and you get, you get
fired up.
Sometimes I get fired up. I know.
Yes.
So, but if you're having like precision in language, right? And I'm not always precise in language, but one of the things that stuck, that's the actual effect of your imaginary beliefs. I mean, what's an imaginary belief? I know what Frenchman means, that your belief in imaginary things, but beliefs aren't imaginary. They're real or they're not.
Right.
So what is that? I mean, I can't have an imaginary belief, just to kind of point that out. So language and precision when you're having a conversation. So some larger things here. I do think when it comes, especially to LGBTQ stuff, sexual morality in general, Christians get painted with a pretty broad brush.
Yes.
Right. So the Catholic, and I emphasized this right off the top. I reiterated in episode 496 that we're called to love everyone, and that God loves everyone, delights in everyone, has redeemed everyone. So there was a point here where Frenchman said, has a nonsensical disgust towards many things, from homosexuals to mixed. God has no disgust towards anybody.
No.
God loves everyone. So he has and there is a whole thing here with looking at the Old Testament to the New.
Yes.
And that would be a good topic for us to talk about sometimes. But there's definitely growth. I mean, God slowly revealed the fullness of who and what he is. So, but the call to love other people was there from the very beginning.
Right.
We do get confused, like what's with the kosher laws? Like we as Christians, as believers, when we read the Old Testament, we can be really confused by what's going on there. That's a little bit, to me, an aside. A couple fundamental things that I want to point out. Did I ever quote the Bible in 496 that you recall?
I don't remember you quoting the Bible.
No. So Frenchman talks about how you base your view of the good on what some ancient scribbles said 2,000 years ago. In some cases, certainly our beliefs flow from divine revelation, scripture, and tradition. But when it comes to moral issues, it's definitely seen in scripture and tradition, but it's also the Catholic Church looks strongly to the what's called the natural law.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we believe is in complete accord with, completely compatible with observations about what the good is, as described by Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. Not in that order. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates, and Bill and Ted said something about Socrates.
Right.
So a lot of our morality is the insights that we find in Scripture were actually already discovered by ancient Greek, pagan, non-biblical philosophers,
right? Who had no knowledge of what was happening.
They also, they also believed in the uncaused caused, the unmoved mover. So the whole thing about no proof for belief in God and so on, I mean, that would take us very far afield. Bishop Barron, Catholic Answers, Trent Horn. I mean, there are all sorts. If somebody, whether it's Frenchman or anybody else, really wants to know, like, okay, why? What are the reasons that Catholics give for believing that there is a God? There are all sorts of books and now videos and articles online that you can look. So again, Bishop Robert Barron will be a great one to look to. Trent Horn will be a great one. He works at a place called Catholic Answers. If you can find all sorts of videos and and podcasts galore.
Yes.
In which by the way, they also have debates and so on.
Yeah.
So there are good reasons. And relatedly, so Frenchman makes this point that faith, believing despite sufficient evidence. No. Faith is believing.
That one got me too. I was like,
faith is believing that something is true because somebody I trust tells me it.
Right.
And we all do that all the time.
Yes.
I have never actually verified, and I would not be able to verify a lot of things that I learned in school.
Right.
I have confidence that it's true because I trust my teachers.
Right.
They established, somehow their trust was established in me. Maybe just like mom and dad said it or whatever, or the things that they said. Somehow I came to trust them. So faith is not believing despite sufficient evidence.
Right.
Faith is simply believing something's true because I trust the person who told me.
It's very much like you trust your doctor to tell you what
exactly.
to do, or what's wrong with you or what to do.
I've had surgery.
You have faith in your doctor.
I had surgery. I didn't see what was happening in my surgery. I trust my doctor.
Yeah.
So again, we could talk about that more, but that's not the Catholic. So faith is very rational. The Catholic, other Christians might have different perspectives, but the Catholic perspective, faith is very rational. It's me believing something's true because I trust the person who tells me.
Right.
Again, we could spend a lot of time talking about that as well. So Renae, was there anything else in Frenchman's comment that you?
Oh, probably, but that's where I get myself in trouble. See.
So I would be happy to, and so I mean, Frenchman or anybody else who disagrees with us, if there's a specific issue that the challenge is in a comment like this one. It's throwing out 3, 4, 5 issues that we could spend a lot of time on. But I would, again, can't always take an episode to talk about every comment, but would happy to dive in. So maybe, Renae, we do need to spend an episode on God's existence and so on.
Yeah, because I also found the one, there are knowable facts about what makes human beings live productive and fulfilling lives. That is true.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are actually in the natural law, and they may not be what you think they are.
Right, absolutely. And what do you do when people disagree?
Right.
So, and here's the other thing. So the other thing too, ultimately, there is some foundation, there's some fundamental principle that we take as an assumption or presupposition when it comes to morality. Mm-hmm. So the idea of human dignity, where's that come from?
Right.
Where's that idea come from? That I should treat. So ultimately, I'm going to say that the idea of treating people with dignity ultimately rests on the idea that there is a God who gave that dignity to every person.
Because otherwise we have no dignity because there was no one to give it to us.
So I would say there is no rational basis to think that there's an objective good or that I should treat you with dignity apart from it. Now, I think natural law, you can argue, but ultimately, if you keep pushing why, it does come back to that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a believer to be good, certainly, but I would say you're being ultimately irrational because there is no fundamental rational foundation for your beliefs.
Right.
So, Renae, we're out of time.
That was quick.
Thanks for this episode. And again, please feel free to contact us, ignition@sfcatholic.org. Drop any comments in YouTube, and if we can, we will respond to those. Until next time, God bless you.